I still remember the clinking of glasses, the soft glow of fairy lights, and the hopeful rush in my chest that night. It was my engagement dinner, the evening I had secretly rehearsed in my mind since I was a little girl. Every detail felt fragile, like a glass ornament ready to shatter at the smallest tremor, but I had convinced myself that this was happiness. This was mine. My fiancé, Daniel, stood beside me in a tailored suit, his arm brushing mine every so often in a way that steadied me. My sister Vanessa, in a dress too dazzling to be called modest, fluttered around greeting guests as though she were the star of the show. Still, I didn't mind. I was used to Vanessa's dramatic entrances. She had always loved the spotlight, and I had always been willing to let her have it. That night, though, I believed I finally had something she couldn't overshadow. My own love story, my future. The evening began like any other family gathering. My parents beamed with pride, though more at Vanessa's glamour than at me. My aunt whispered loudly about how lucky I was to be marrying such a catch. The air smelled of roasted lamb and champagne. Laughter rolled through the hall in warm waves. I kept my smile fixed, even as tiny slivers of unease prickled at the back of my mind. I brushed them away. After all, tonight was about commitment, about promises, about finally stepping out of my sister's shadow. But shadows, I would learn, have a way of consuming the light when you least expect it. Daniel raised his glass to make a toast. His voice was steady, confident, practiced. To love, to family, to building a future together. Everyone cheered. I looked at him, my heart swelling, believing every word. Yet when his gaze flickered briefly toward Vanessa, lingering longer than a glance should, I felt something cold stir inside me. I shook it off, forced myself to believe it was nothing more than imagination playing tricks in a room too full of eyes. As the night stretched on, people danced, drank, and celebrated. Vanessa leaned in close to Daniel a little too often, laughing at jokes I wasn't privy to, touching his arm under the pretense of fixing his tie. My mother even teased, "Oh, you two look like movie stars together." Everyone laughed. I did too, because what else could I do? My chest ached, but I swallowed the sting and reminded myself, he chose me. He's mine. Then came the moment that shattered it all. I had gone to the powder room to fix my lipstick. On my way back, I slowed at the sight of two familiar figures just beyond the terrace doors. Vanessa and Daniel. Too close. Whispering. I should have turned away. I should have protected myself from what I was about to see. But I didn't. I watched. I listened. "Are you sure about this?" Vanessa's voice floated through the crack of the door. "She's my sister." Daniel chuckled, low and soft. "She's naive. She'll never see it coming." My breath caught. My skin burned. My pulse roared in my ears. They kissed, long, deliberate, unashamed. In that instant, my world collapsed into 1,000 sharp fragments that cut me from the inside out. I stumbled backward, knocking into a waiter who nearly dropped his tray. My cheeks flamed as I muttered an apology, pretending nothing had happened, though every bone in my body screamed otherwise. I returned to the hall, numb, my smile glued on like a brittle mask. I let the rest of the evening blur around me, each congratulation and toast stabbing deeper. Vanessa and Daniel played their roles perfectly, hands brushing under the table when they thought I wasn't looking. My parents beamed, oblivious. And me? I sat there, engaged to a man who had already betrayed me, betrayed with the person who shared my blood. That night, when everyone left and the fairy lights dimmed, I lay in bed replaying every detail. The whispered words. The kiss. The way my mother had admired them together. Anger clawed at me, grief drowned me, and humiliation wrapped around my throat like a tightening noose. But beneath it all, something else sparked, something colder, sharper. The beginning of a promise. One day, I thought, they will regret underestimating me. In the days that followed, my engagement unraveled like a badly sewn seam. Daniel confessed, though only because he knew I had seen. My parents urged me to understand, to forgive, because family must stay together. Vanessa, with her perfected look of innocence, swore it was just a mistake. But I wasn't blind anymore. I walked away from them all, carrying my broken heart like a secret weapon I refused to bury. Years passed. I built a new life far away, one brick of determination at a time. I studied, I worked, I bled for success no one thought I could achieve. Every insult, every dismissal, every betrayal, they fueled me. While Vanessa flaunted fake designer bags and Daniel drifted from one failed business venture to another, I was building empires in silence. While they whispered about how I'd never recover, I was creating a life they couldn't even imagine. I learned patience, discipline, power. And when the time was right, I returned. It was my father's 60th birthday, a grand celebration at a luxury venue. The invitations had gone out to every relative, every business associate, every so-called friend. They hadn't bothered to send me one, of course. But I didn't need their invitation. Because this time, I wasn't coming as the humiliated sister, the betrayed fiancé, the girl everyone pitied. I was coming back as the woman they had never seen coming. The venue shimmered with chandeliers and crystal glassware, laughter spilling out onto the marble floors. My father had always loved grand celebrations, even when we could barely afford them. Now, after years of Vanessa and Daniel clinging to his wealth and pretending it was their own, he was hosting the event of the season. I arrived in silence, my heels clicking against the stone, every eye turning as though they had seen a ghost. In a way they had. I wore power like armor. My dress was sleek, understated but commanding, the kind of elegance money couldn't fake. My hair was pinned back, my expression unreadable, my presence impossible to ignore. Conversations faltered, forks hovered in midair. My mother's glass slipped slightly in her hand, her smile freezing on her lips. Vanessa was the first to break the silence. "You," she stammered, her eyes wide, her carefully painted smile cracking. "We didn't think you'd come." Her words trembled, but beneath them was the old venom I knew too well. She had thought she had erased me, that my story ended the night of my engagement dinner. She was wrong. I wouldn't miss Father's birthday, I said smoothly, my voice calm, even warm. "Family means everything, doesn't it?" Gasps rippled across the room as I stepped further in, my gaze sweeping past her to Daniel. His face had aged with the years, stress etched around his mouth, eyes duller than I remembered. He shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his suit jacket as though the fabric itself betrayed him. For a man who once gloated about charm, his confidence had withered. Vanessa clung to his arm, too tightly. I noticed. Everyone noticed. I greeted relatives with poise, shaking hands, smiling graciously. Whispers followed me, snatches of awe and speculation. "She looks different, more powerful. She's glowing. What has she been doing all these years?" I let the questions fester. The less they knew, the more they hungered for answers. Dinner was served, speeches given. My father, oblivious to the tension, praised his daughters, thanking Vanessa for being the glue of the family, while conveniently ignoring my absence all these years. Vanessa beamed, her pride swelling, her eyes flicking toward me as if to say, "See? You'll never replace me." But she didn't know what was coming. When it was my turn to raise a toast, I stood slowly, every movement deliberate. The clinking of my glass silenced the room. I looked directly at my father, then let my gaze shift to Vanessa and Daniel, locking them in place like prey caught in headlights. "To family," I began, my tone even. "The ones who lift us up, and the ones who teach us lessons the hard way." A ripple of unease spread across the hall. Vanessa's smile faltered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I've been gone for years, but not lost. While I was away, I built something of my own. Something strong, something unshakable. I realized that betrayal doesn't destroy you. It forges you. And tonight, I stand here not as the forgotten daughter or the humiliated fiancé, but as someone who learned that sometimes, revenge isn't about anger. It's about patience." The room buzzed with murmurs. My father frowned, confused, while my mother dabbed her forehead nervously. Vanessa's voice sliced through the tension. "Revenge?" she scoffed, though her voice wavered. "You haven't changed at all. Still the bitter little girl who couldn't handle the truth. Look at you, standing here trying to scare us. Pathetic." Her words were sharp, but her hands shook as she clutched her glass. I smiled. Not the broken smile of years ago, but the calm, knowing smile of someone who had already won. "Pathetic?" I echoed. "Funny you should say that. Because while you were busy living off Father's money, and Daniel was failing business after business, I was building something real. companies, investments, influence. And I didn't need to beg or steal to do it. Gasps filled the room. I let them sink in. Daniel finally found his voice. You think anyone cares? Money doesn't erase the fact that you were. He stopped himself, but his eyes betrayed his thought. Abandoned, unloved. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only they could hear. Though I knew everyone strained to catch the words. You took what was mine once. You thought you had broken me. But the thing about betrayal is that it creates scars. And scars are stronger than skin. Vanessa's face flushed crimson, her composure unraveling. You don't belong here, she hissed. I tilted my head. Don't I? This is my family too. And tonight, everyone gets to see the truth for themselves. At that moment, I signaled discreetly to an assistant I had brought. Someone unnoticed, blending into the staff. A large screen flickered to life at the front of the hall. Everyone turned. A video began to play. It wasn't just any video. It was the recording from my engagement dinner years ago. The terrace. The whispers. The kiss. Their betrayal. Captured forever. Gasps tore through the room as the images replayed what I had carried alone for so long. Relatives clutched pearls. Mouths hung open. My father's face went ashen. The room erupted in chaos. Some guests demanded explanations. Others shook their heads in disgust. Vanessa stumbled back, Daniel's hand slipping from hers. The perfect facade they had spent years building cracked wide open in front of everyone who mattered. I stood in silence, watching it all unfold. The storm I had unleashed tearing through their carefully constructed lies. And for the first time since that night, I felt whole again. The hall crackled with disbelief. Forks clattered against plates. Voices rose in anger, the betrayal painted across the screen too raw to ignore. My father's face had hardened into stone, his pride wounded deeper than any blade could cut. My mother whispered, "How could you?" But whether her words were meant for Vanessa, Daniel, or herself, I couldn't tell. Vanessa's lips trembled as she searched for words. It was years ago. We were young, foolish. Her voice cracked, desperate. Daniel tried to step forward, his hands raised as though he could calm the raging sea. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is the life we've built since then. The crowd erupted in murmurs of disgust. Mistakes, someone hissed. That wasn't a mistake, it was betrayal. I remained silent, letting the weight of the evidence crush them. My revenge wasn't in shouting, it was in restraint. Every second of silence made their downfall louder. Finally, I turned to face my father. You always said loyalty was the foundation of family. Tell me, father, do you still believe that? His hands shook as he set down his glass. For a man who had spent his life commanding boardrooms and holding court at family gatherings, he suddenly looked frail. I didn't know, he muttered. I thought Vanessa was holding the family together. A humorless laugh escaped me. She wasn't holding it together. She was tearing it apart from the inside. Vanessa's mask shattered. She lunged toward me, her voice shrill, cutting through the air like broken glass. You think you're better than me? You were always the favorite, always the one they looked at with pride. I only took what you didn't deserve. Gasps. Even Daniel flinched at her confession. She had revealed her envy before them all. I stepped back unshaken. And yet, I said softly, after all these years, you're still living in my shadow. Her rage twisted her features, but her words faltered as the room turned against her. Daniel tried to save himself, throwing her under the bus with a coward's precision. She tempted me. I never wanted to hurt you, she pushed me. The betrayal in her eyes as she whipped around to face him was almost poetic. Coward, she screamed. You wanted me as much as I wanted you. The crowd was no longer just spectators. They were judges, jurors, executioners of reputation. Their whispers were daggers, and neither Vanessa nor Daniel had armor strong enough to withstand them. I raised my glass once more, my voice calm, steady, commanding the attention of every soul in the room. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about revelation. Tonight, I didn't have to lift a finger to ruin you. I simply had to show the truth. I let that hang in the air before continuing. I didn't come back to beg for a place in this family. I came back to prove that betrayal does not define me. It defines you. I placed the glass down with finality. The toast was over. The story complete. Guests began to leave, shaking their heads, muttering words of pity for me, of disdain for them. My father didn't stop them. He couldn't. His empire of appearances had crumbled, and he had no words to patch it together. As the hall emptied, Vanessa and Daniel stood isolated, their hands no longer entwined, their once perfect image shattered beyond repair. Vanessa's tears streaked her makeup, her sobs raw and jagged. Daniel avoided her gaze, staring at the floor as though it might open up and swallow him whole. I walked past them slowly, deliberately, my heels striking the marble with measured rhythm. When I reached the door, I turned just once. "Do you remember that night?" I asked, my voice low but carrying across the silence. "When you laughed at me on the terrace, thinking you had stolen my future. That was the night I began building a new one. You may have taken my fiancé, my family's trust, my dignity in that moment, but in the end, you gave me something greater." Vanessa's sobs stilled. Daniel lifted his eyes, the room holding its breath. "You gave me clarity," I finished. "And clarity is worth more than anything you could ever steal." I left them there, broken, the echoes of my words lingering like a ghost they would never escape. Outside, the night was cool, the air sharp with the scent of rain. I breathed deeply, each inhale a reminder that I was free. Not because they had finally fallen, but because I had risen. As I stepped into the waiting car, the city lights stretched before me like a promise. I didn't need their approval, their validation, or their forgiveness. My story no longer revolved around their betrayal. The revenge was complete. But the true victory was this: I had reclaimed myself.